All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about what's next for Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. So, their futures are kind of up in the air right now. They just got eliminated from the playoffs at the hands of the Philadelphia Eagles. And, the Rams, they got some decisions to make, on what they're going to do. Stafford supposedly is contemplating retirement, and there's a chance that Cooper Kupp might not be in a Rams uniform next year. And, these guys had a lot of success together. I used a picture from when they won the Super Bowl together a few years ago. Cooper Kupp won the Triple Crown, put together one of the greatest seasons a receiver's ever had. Stafford, his first year with the Rams was special. Got his first Super Bowl ring, well-deserved. And, since then, 2022, you could throw that season away. Last year, they got off to a little bit of a slow start, but, then they got hot towards the end of the year. They made the playoffs. They lost a close game with the Lions. And then this year, they dealt with injuries to both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And then once they got those two guys back, they made a run. They made the playoffs. They won the division. They won a playoff game. And, they had a chance to win on Sunday. They really did. I think, I do agree with this. If the weather wasn't so bad, I think maybe the Rams might have won that because I don't think, Stafford's fumbling. I don't think Kyron Williams is fumbling if the weather is, if the weather's decent. You didn't have that snowstorm coming in. But we'll never know. But then again, you see on social media, if they would have played in better conditions, they showed the game from earlier this season when Saquon Barkley ran wild and, that was kind of a blowout, that game. But, look, I think Stafford could still play. I think he's still got a couple of decent years left in him. He proved that to us on Sunday. He really proved it to us, all year when he has the right weapons. I mean, when they had Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp out, Stafford wasn't putting up good numbers, but that's because, he really didn't have much to work with. And that's what these guys need at the later stages of their career. I mean, we saw that with Tom Brady, with the Buccaneers. I mean, we saw his final year when he didn't really have the offensive line around him and, he didn't have Gronk. He wasn't as good. I mean, you still had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Leonard Fournette, but he didn't have the time to throw that he did the first couple years in Tampa, and he didn't have Gronk, which is a big part of his success, as well during his time in Tampa. And then, we saw what Aaron Rodgers looked like at certain points during the year with the Jets. I mean, he wasn't getting protection, and, when he was hurt, he wasn't as effective. But when he got healthier towards the end of the year, he looked like a different quarterback. He looked like somewhat more of what we were accustomed to seeing from him. And again, same thing with Stafford. Stafford is, I believe he's 36. Obviously he's not, in his 40s yet, like Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady was playing well into his 40s. But that's what these guys need at the later stages. They need almost everything to work around them. And like I said, we saw a different quarterback once he got his top two weapons back. Now, me personally, I think that Stafford will come back for the Rams next year. But when it comes to Cooper Kupp, it's more uncertain there. Because it's possible he could become a cap casualty. Because he's set to make, I think, $30 million next year. And, he didn't put up big numbers this year. He didn't. He was kind of absent. I mean, we knew he was playing, of course, but, really didn't show up on the stat sheet. It was really all Puka Nacua for the most part. Because looking at his stats, Cooper Kupp, he finished with 710 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns. Looking at some of the games, after he had over 100 yards against the Patriots, and that was on November 17th, he did not have over 100 yards again. He had 60 yards against Philadelphia and a touchdown, 17 against the Saints, 92 against the Bills, but he did have a touchdown. He had no stats recorded other than 3 targets against the Niners, but that was also a bad weather game. Then he had 3 receptions for 24 yards against the Jets, and then he had 1 reception for 29 yards against the Cardinals. Then 1 for 29 against the Vikings, and then 5 for 61 against the Eagles. And he had a nice catch in that game at one point. I mean, Cooper Kupp, I think, could still play. I don't think Cooper Kupp is washed. I think for me, though, you saw kind of a changing of the guard in terms of who's the number one receiver in that offense. And Puka Nacua has taken that over. You know, he is the number one receiver now. And that's just what happens. You know, I mean, I don't think Cooper Kupp is, the same player he was when he won the Triple Crown, but I still think he's got a lot of gas left in the tank. And I think a team would snatch him up immediately if he was out there. And, you heard the rumblings during the year about, him possibly being a trade chip, but that was kind of before we knew what exactly the Rams were planning on doing, because I think it really all came down to that Thursday night game against the Vikings. And once they picked up that win with those 2 guys back, the Rams are like, all right, we're going to go on a run. And that's what they did. That's what they ended up doing. So they didn't want, obviously you don't want to trade Cooper Kupp. But now, maybe they do end up doing that. Maybe, in the offseason, we see something happen where either he's cut, he's traded, and then the Rams maybe go after some receivers in the draft. Maybe they hold on to Demarcus Robinson because, he's made big plays for them over the course of the last couple of years. And, he's a cheaper option. And then maybe you go and you draft a receiver. You got Tyler Higbee back for next year. You have Kyron Williams coming out of the backfield. It's not like they lose Cooper Kupp and that's it. But maybe they want to go a different route. He is getting older. And, he's taking up a lot of their cap. Or a decent amount of their cap. So we'll have to wait and see. But for me, I don't think Stafford's retiring. I think Stafford's going to come back. I'm more positive on, or more optimistic on Stafford coming back than I am on Aaron Rodgers coming back, even though maybe he is coming back. I don't really know. Because every time I say he's going to retire, then he ends up playing again. So now I'm going to say Stafford's going to come back, and then he's going to end up retiring. I don't think so. I think Stafford is going to come back. Now, could Stafford end up with another team? Maybe. I mean, if Stafford was available, he would also be a guy where teams are lining up to try to get him. I mean, as a Giant fan, I'd take him. He probably wouldn't be as good as, he is on the Rams with the Giants, but listen, I would take him. The Giants are desperate. I apologize for always relating things back to the Giants, but I'm going to do that. But Stafford, if he's available, teams would want to, get a chance to get him. So we'll see what happens, though. But the Rams, they could look different next year. And you know what? They have a lot of young players on that defense. And that defense, improved as the year went along. Now, obviously, against the Eagles, twice, Saquon Barkley destroyed them. But the defense improved. They got some good young players on that side of the ball. They got good young players on offense. Now it's just, what are they going to do with the 2 vets here? I think at least one of them is going to come back. And I don't think it's going to be Cooper Kupp. Now, there's also that scenario where, the Rams could restructure Cooper Kupp's deal if he's willing to do that and he stays. It's possible. But is he going to be willing to do that? We'll have to wait and see. Stafford, they did some restructuring before the year started and things were able to pan out. But we'll just have to wait and see how it all goes. But I'm going to say Stafford's going to come back. Stafford's going to play next year, and I think he will be the Rams quarterback. And if he's not, then he's not. But I would say that maybe we might have seen Cooper Kupp's last game as a Ram. on Sunday. Maybe that was his last game, and he's going to be playing elsewhere. But like I said, there's going to be teams lining up to try to get him, because there's always teams that need receivers. There's always teams that need quarterbacks. So, but if this is it, it was they had a special connection. Like I said, you go back to that first year with Stafford as the quarterback. Cooper Kupp put up those monster numbers, Triple Crown, and then, they went on the road against Tampa, and, they beat the Buccaneers in that epic playoff game. They won the NFC Championship game. They get to the Super Bowl. They win it. Cooper Kupp catches the go-ahead touchdown towards the end of that game there. And, 2022 was a tough year for them, but, the last 2 years they've made the playoffs. So, this team could still – this team is close. They could compete with, these better teams here. They had the Eagles. They were right there. It's just, the difference in that game was turnovers and Saquon Barkley. They could have won that game. And then, you get past the Eagles. I think they could beat the Commanders. I think they could have beat the Lions too, even though they've lost to the Lions twice now, the last 2 years, but including this year. The Rams could beat anybody. So, maybe you try to keep this group together and you go after it one more time. You continue to improve this roster because you have one of the best head coaches in the NFL in Sean McVay. So, and he, when they were trying to ask him questions, he said he's just kind of focused on, the team right now, after just losing a playoff game. We'll learn more as we go through the offseason. But right now, I'm going to say Stafford comes back, Kupp might be gone. But if he restructures his deal, then he's going to stay. But let me know what you guys think. Do both of these guys come back? Do they both leave? Does Stafford retire? Does Kupp stay and Stafford leaves? What do you think is the most likely outcome? Let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about the AFC Championship game. We will take, a little sneak peek at this game. And we'll talk about, is this the time that Josh Allen will finally knock off Patrick Mahomes in the postseason? Will it happen this time around? We'll get into the likelihood of that, and I'll give you my thoughts when we come back. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.